We wanted them to be able to see, once you're starting to reach out and collaborate and you understand different perspectives, you're going to have bigger solutions to bigger problems. Fu founded Luminari in 2009, and her idea was to create an organization and a camp that focused on diplomacy, and not just I want to work for the State Department and be a diplomat, but how do we use diplomacy in everyday life and bring people together, collaborate to solve problems, and sort of restore a social grace that might be getting short shrift in society. And so that was the birth of the I Want to Be an Ambassador camp. Camp would be an 8-day camp, and for the first 4 days in Pittsburgh, we met at a common room at the History Center in Pittsburgh, and there the students did activities that I would direct, but we also had guest speakers, experts from the community who would come in and present some sessions in their area of expertise. So what does it mean to be an ambassador in business? And what does it mean to be an advocate for somebody? And so we had these little sessions where guest experts came in and they talked and created activities. There were sometimes peer team activities, or there were sometimes hands-on experiential activities, and there were things that I would do to get them to know one another, but also knock them out of their comfort zone. So if they came in with a friend, or they sat down next to somebody who was sort of like them, oh, you're a 14-year-old girl? So am I guess we belong together. I'd try to knock them out of those little comfort zones so they would have to interact and start being an ambassador right away.
My favorite memories was when we were being taught to make sure we thought before we spoke and to make sure we were clear in our messages. And the activity we did to go with this was Gina stood up at the front. She had a bag of bread and jars of peanut butter and jelly, and she said, tell me how to make a peanut butter sandwich. And we all thought, this is going to be so easy. Why are we doing this? We'll be done in 10 minutes.
Well, sometimes your goal is to really communicate, but because you have cultural differences, whether it's 2 different countries, 2 different communities, 2 different age groups, you think you're both hearing the same thing, but you're not, and it's what I told them was assumption of knowledge, and diplomacy can often fall down just because there was a gap due to the assumption of knowledge.
We tell her, get a piece of bread, and so she rips open the bag and takes out a handful of bread, and she's like this? And we're like, no, we just said to get a piece of bread. But she told us we need to be more specific. Anybody else wouldn't know what that meant. We couldn't just assume that they did. We realized we really need to be careful with our vocabulary, because otherwise we can't assume that people just know what we mean.
Even well-intentioned communication could break down if there's assumption of knowledge, if they're not specific in what they say, and if they don't have a cultural sensitivity to the person they're talking to. And so really it was, in my mind, always about the words. And the idea was that if you start with teenagers and you can teach them how to collaborate and make connections, then that would have a ripple effect. Here, they could go be ambassadors, they could collaborate and bring people together and model skills that then other teens could use. I think the most important skill they'd learn was confidence to be a leader, whether it was amongst their friends or with people they perceived as being in power, adults that they wouldn't want to challenge. Okay, so you might think something's unfair in your school. Couldn't you be a diplomatic person who talks to the principal, who talks to the teacher? Couldn't you negotiate fairly with your parents? Can't you be the person who reaches out to somebody from another culture, another age group, somebody different from you? Can you have the confidence to do that without thinking, well, I'm just a kid?
Example, a favorite quote of Gina was that if you can give 30 seconds of insane courage, you don't have to be brave all the time, but if you can for 30 seconds and something great will come out of it. And I've realized over the past year, I've told myself that when I didn't want to do something, just be brave for 30 seconds, and every single time something great came out of it.
Just knowing them wasn't enough. Did you have the confidence at the moment when it was really needed to step up? And I think that they all found it. It wasn't that we had to teach them that confidence, we just had to show them it's in you already, you just have to tap into it. Then we went to Washington, D.C., and that was where we were going to see diplomacy in action. We went to two different embassies, the Greek embassy, the European Union embassy. We went to the US State Department and we met with a diplomat there. We went to the Capitol and we heard presentations about how people were diplomats for their state, how people were diplomats for the country.
It really explained it. It wasn't just a presentation. It was all these activities where you got to participate and see it for yourself more. That was more effective than it would have been without it. They've all been like really inspirational, you know, giving us examples of the ways that they use them and the ways that we can too. And really just like pushing us, like, you know, being excited for us, supporting the things that we do instead of, you know, focusing on like, this is a lecture I need to give. They're more about teaching us the ways to do it and teaching us more of the life skills.
So that's the ripple effect that Hilda was really looking for. And that was really the ultimate goal of Ambassador Camp, was not just to teach people to be ambassadors, but to teach them how to teach other people to be ambassadors too. I think the first thing that I, as the director, wanted them to know was they didn't need to wait for somebody else to solve their problems. The time to start is now, and frequently young people say, well, I'm too young to do anything, and you say, no, you can do something. It might not be the deepest print on the planet, but you can do something to make some small difference. How could you be the first pebble in the water that starts a more positive ripple effect? And they saw that just from meeting the people the adults who came in and talked to them on different subjects, just from interacting with each other, from thinking about it from an arts perspective. How can arts inspire conversation about peace? You know, how is a global economy an opportunity for us to communicate because we understand each other's cultures rather than are afraid of them? And if they're not going to learn it when they're teens, when are they ever going to employ it as an adult?